Welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone. I am Lori LeBay, and welcome back to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. If you liked our opening music, it's called Clarion Call by the Mark Arneson Band, and you can download that on any of your favorite music platforms. For those of you that are new, Alzheimer's Speaks Radio is about sound information, not just sound bites. We like to talk to real people in the trenches making a difference. And so maybe, just maybe, you can be our next guest. Reach out to me at any time. I'd love to talk to you and hear what you're doing. I always like to do a couple of shout outs. And of course, I have to shout out to Dementia Map, which I'm co-founder of. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. We are building it out. Every day it changes. There's like 150 categories that you can search. It's free to use and open to anybody. We have a calendar of events, a glossary, and a blog. So much out there. So check out dementiamap.com. Now this I'm really excited about because this team has been working on their project for years. And I'm excited to announce that the film Determined, Fighting Alzheimer's, A Battle for the Brain That Begins with the Heart, is going to premiere April 6th on PBS. So all you have to do is check your channels listings for the time because they vary depending on where you're located. I am also thrilled. I'm finally going to do an in-person presentation where you're going to be doing 2 screenings of the film A Timeless Love. And that's going to be in Winona, Minnesota for the Winona Dementia Friendly Community Week. They're doing a whole week of education. I will be down there Thursday, April 7th and Friday, April 8th. And you can find more information about the event on our website. And let's see, I'm still continuing to do a couple of programs. One is virtual, which is Arthur's Memory Cafe, and that is on the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of the month, and anybody around the world is welcome to attend that. The other is with Brookdale North Oaks, and we do a Caregiver Connect program, which is for caregivers, and then they kind of have a respite for people living with dementia. We've been doing that in person for a long time, but the last couple of months, we were kind of in lockdown here in Minnesota, so we were doing them virtually. We're hoping this month in March, we'll be able to meet in person again, and we will be meeting the last Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. Again, you can always get more information from me on that. I also want to raise the voice of all Arthurs, because if you're caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or any type of dementia, you want to know who they are. They are a global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. They have the most comprehensive collection of hundreds of carefully vetted books and blogs covering dementia and caring situations. Their authors' personal stories and painful learned lessons can help you on your own journey. They also offer a fabulous podcast called Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, which you can find on any podcast platform. And they want you to remember you're not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but they choose to form a choir and create harmony. So check them out at allsauthors.com. We're going to hear from the Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner about the foot bar walker, and then we'll be right back.
I love the footbar walker, and let me tell you why. It is the option for my toolbox that I've been waiting for. Let's be honest, there are some clients who, despite our best rehab efforts, just aren't able to return to performing a sit-to-stand transfer on their own. Now I can offer my caregivers an easier, safer option that doesn't involve hoisting their loved one up from a sitting position. I don't recommend this walker for all of my clients, but I do recommend this walker for those caregivers looking for an easier, safer option with transfers. I would also encourage other therapists to add this walker to their toolbox. It's kind of like having my own mobile parallel bars for the client to pull up on. Whether it's a family caregiver at home helping a loved one with Parkinson's or dementia, CNAs in a long-term care facility assisting their patients, or therapists adapting to client and caregiver-specific needs, we now have a very safe and effective option to offer in the footbar walker. Check this product out at thefootbarwalker.com. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
Well, we are back, and I can't wait to have our discussion today because we are going to be talking about Maude's Awards. And we're going to get into all the nitty gritty of when applications are taking place. But today we are going to talk with Marilyn Raichle. And she began her career in Seattle as a producer of the Bath House and Tacoma Actors Guild. And she also was the Theater Communications Fellow at the Guthrie here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 1987, she founded the Seattle International Children's Festival, introducing children to the world of culture through the performing arts and growing to become the largest festival in the U.S. In 2010, she received a Master's of Public Administration at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. And upon returning to Seattle, she became a care partner for her parents, both of whom developed Alzheimer's disease. In 2015, inspired by her mother's newfound artistic ability, she founded the Art of Alzheimer's, celebrating the creativity of persons living with dementia and the power of creative arts to enrich and empower their lives. In addition to Marilyn, we have Ann Wheat, and Ann has served as the director of the Family Caregiver Services since 2014, and she is now the Duets executive director. She holds a bachelor's degree and has completed her graduate studies in recreational management from the University of Arizona. Ann was a member of the Duet board of directors from 1999 to 2005 and the co-chair of Duet's major fundraising events. Before her service at Duet, Ann was an acting deputy director for the city of Phoenix. Well, ladies, I'm so excited to have you both here. I am thrilled to be talking about Maude's Awards and letting people know what's going on. And Ann, to have you with us as well to talk about what it meant to be a winner and, you know, what you did with your funding and exposure and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you both for taking time to be with us today on Alzheimer's Speaks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as you probably know, I always start out with my first question being, have you been personally touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends? Marilyn, I mentioned, you know, both of your parents were, but if you want to give people a little bit more detail, that would be great.
Sure. My father had it. All his brothers and sisters had it when they turned 80. He came from a family of 7. And we didn't expect mother to get dementia. But when she was in her early 80s, she started to experience memory loss and confusion and anxiety. And I became a caregiver. I didn't expect it. And she actually told us to walk away if she ever got Alzheimer's. She said, walk away. I'm not going to remember you. Don't sacrifice your life for us. And I believed her for the longest time. And then when I finally became her real care partner, my life changed, and it was a wonderful experience.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Ann, how about you?
Oh, definitely. Dementia has touched my immediate family and very closely. When I was in my 40s and my older sister had just turned 50, it was her 50th birthday, she was diagnosed with a extremely rare form of dementia, visual variant dementia, or sometimes called posterior cortical atrophy. And walking that journey with her was undoubtedly the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Before she passed, my father was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And then my mother, who had developed, was his primary caregiver, though I lived a mile away and was caring for all three of them, helping to provide care. She developed Alzheimer's. So my parents died 5 weeks apart in their home. We're very proud. We were able to support them on their journey. And my sister had passed away about a year before them.
Wow. That's a lot on your shoulders. A lot on your shoulders.
It did feel like it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing your stories. I think it's just nice for people to hear, different angles of how they're touched or not touched yet by dementia. But, I want to start out, Marilyn, with you first, because a lot of people might not be aware of Maude's Awards and what the heck it is. So why don't you tell people how you're associated with Maude's Awards and what it is?
Well, I am exceedingly fortunate to be the executive director of Maude's Awards for Innovation in Alzheimer's Care. And this was founded 3 years ago by Richard Ferry. And it was inspired by Maude, his beloved wife and partner of 65 years. As he likes to say, they lived the American dream. He was a successful corporate executive, and she was his partner. She was, as he put it, a matriarch extraordinaire. She was his goodwill ambassador, his silent partner, a community volunteer, and she was also the mother to 6 children, grandmother of 12, and great-grandmother to 3. She lived with grace and elegance, inspiring all who knew her. And she has passed away, but her passing is not a cause for sorrow. It is more a celebration of her extraordinary life. And as one Maude's awardee put it last year, Maude continues to work her magic. And so she does. When Richard became a care partner in 2013, he, like most care partners, started looking for ways to bring joy and happiness to her life. He didn't find many. So he started Maude's Awards. And this is an organization that gives away every year awards, $25,000 to 3 organizations and $5,000 to up to 5 individuals, all for excellence and achievements in 4 categories of care.
I love hearing the story of just honoring, a loved one who's been through this and a family situation and trying to make a difference in terms of, I felt the same way. That's how I started Alzheimer's Speaks, and like, where's the services? Where's all this help? There's got to be other people like me. And so many services, products, and tools have been developed, I think, because of personal journeys in saying, we've got to do a better job, with all of this. And I want to ask you, how did you find out about Maude's Awards?
Actually, someone on our team had found out about it and sent information to me. So we were very fortunate that the word got to us quite easily. I think Maude does a great job of getting the word out. So we were totally excited. We certainly never won a national award for our work to support family caregivers whose loved ones have Alzheimer's or related dementia. And so we were very excited to nominate the Finding Meaning and Hope program that we had developed specifically for family caregivers of persons with dementia.
Yeah, I love the concept of being awarded for something you've already accomplished versus I think the whole industry is used to applying for funding to kick something off and building this whole criteria. And so to me, it's just neat to say, you don't have to wait for this to get developed. It's already out here, and then raising those voices. I think that is such a huge public service in and of itself to allow people to know what exists already and the stories behind them that then comes out with that. Why don't you go ahead, Marilyn, and tell us the criteria of how people are selected as winners and the categories as well.
Sure. And again, these are not grants. These are awards for achievements that have already been done. And so there are four. One is making connections, and this is creating meaningful opportunities for persons living with dementia to connect to the people in the world around them. Treating by design, which is significantly improving the living spaces or mobility of persons living with dementia. There's cultivating health, providing exceptional care or education that supports the long-term physical health of persons living with dementia. And the fourth is supporting care partners, a category that Ann Wheat, in which she won, which is providing impactful education, training, and support for care partners. And this is so important. And it's so exciting to be here with Ann.
It's very, very exciting. Thank you for those categories, because I think that's helpful for people to know, how to be able to break things down. One of the things that I appreciated too with looking over the application process was you guys have made it really easy.
Yeah.
Some application process, you just leave scratching your head going, I'm not even sure where to go with this. I don't know if I have the time to do this because I'm busy doing this over here that I really value. And so I think that is a really nice format in which you've done that as well.
And especially for the individuals, we've made it really simple because we know that it's open to anybody, and that family caregivers, and we love to hear from individuals and caregivers, but we know that they're busy and they don't have a lot of time. So we want to make this, and I'm always available to answer questions.
Which is wonderful. And some individuals are just they're not savvy in terms of how do you proceed, or they think that they won't be valued.
Right.
They're just a care partner. And it's like, hey, care partners, you play a big role in all of this in terms of shifting our care culture from crisis to comfort. So don't dishonor yourself by believing you don't have anything to offer. We run into that like with Dementia Map. Two people go, well, I'm not a company. You don't have to be to have good, valuable information and resources that people appreciate.
Yeah.
You don't have to complicate it with a tax ID number necessarily.
Exactly.
So, Ann, why don't you tell us about the Duet program? I know it's, your partners with the health and aging and, just all your work with family caregivers.
Sure. I'd be pleased to. Duet Partners in Health and Aging is a nonprofit organization based in Phoenix, Arizona. We were actually founded in 1981 with a vision of a community where every person ages with compassion, dignity, and hope. And our mission is to promote health and well-being. We do that through 4 core service areas, supporting homebound elders. We call them our neighbors, through an army of volunteers who are trained and support them. We support grandparents raising grandchildren, faith community nurses to start health and wellness programs in their congregations and communities. And then the 4th area, of course, is supporting family caregivers. We do that through a wide variety of support services. And by the way, all of our services for 40 plus years now are provided free of charge. Mm-hmm. So we run an array of support groups, some general, some very specific for people with Alzheimer's related dementia, Parkinson's disease, a men's group, for instance, that sort of thing. And then we do a lot of personalized guidance. We put on a lot of workshops and a symposium where we bring in, big name folks to really share directly with those family caregivers. And then lastly, of course, a program that has been a labor of love for all of us, the Finding Meaning and Hope program. It's a 10-week video discussion series based on the work of Dr. Pauline Boss, who is a national treasure for dementia family caregivers. And it follows the chapters of her book, Loving Someone Who Has Dementia, How to Find Hope While Coping with Stress and Grief. And so we work directly with Dr. Boss, videotaping her in conversation with real life dementia family caregivers sharing the lessons of that book so that in community, which is so important, not in isolation, but in community, family caregivers can come together and understand what's going on with this complex grief experience that they don't even have a name for. Dr. Boss coined the term ambiguous loss back in the 70s to describe, in the case of these family caregivers, when a person is physically present but psychologically absent or missing. And then she is all about resiliency-based self-care, and she teaches us through the various videos and discussion how to navigate this difficult journey and reclaim meaning and hope in our lives. We've had over 500 family caregivers go through it. And I just would say thank you to Maude's Awards for lifting us up and giving us it's very different from a grant. It is an award, and it brings with it that validation and that national recognition that we so need to give wings to the things we do.
Now, is that program free as well?
Absolutely. We are committed to never charge a penny for any of our services. And now that we're trying to take it national, we have that same absolute commitment to any family caregiver who would like to sign up and join in a meaning and hope session. And we train facilitators to bring it to their communities as well and equip them with all the materials they need to run it in person or virtually.
Wow, that's fantastic. And, Pauline she is just so down to earth. And like you said, such a wealth of knowledge and a treasure. I've had her on the show, and she's just one of those people you could talk to all day long. And the wealth of information in her delivery style is so comfortable. So I would really encourage people to sign up. It's not going to be a waste of your time, because I think you're right, Anne, when you talk about families don't even know how to label this because they're too busy being busy to even think about, why am I feeling drained? Why am I feeling hopeless? Why am I feeling lost? Because there's just so much to do. And the last person we take care of is ourselves.
It's a real aha moment when they understand. And Dr. Boss says, first, you have to be able to name the problem you're dealing with, and then you can do something about it. And ambiguous loss, when they learn that, and there's this, we had a facilitator who said when she explained it for the first time to a family caregiver, the woman looked at her and said, I can breathe. I can finally take a deep breath. 97% of the caregivers who go through the series and respond to the survey say that it lowered their stress and helped them definitely. They all fall in love with Dr. Boss. Anyone who meets her, whether it's through video or in person, to know her is to love her.
Well, it's kind of like what people say about dementia. As much as no one wants to have that diagnosis, they all say they have a sigh of relief, because it's like, well, at least we know what the heck it is, because everyone else has been telling me I'm crazy, or it's not that big of a deal. And so they all say, wow, it lightened the load to have it named, because then you can kind of swim down that path to gather more information and educate yourself and find support. And that's just critically important. And I think it's one of the last things most care partners do, because most of them don't even recognize they are a care partner. They're a spouse, they're a son or a daughter, or, a neighbor, just doing what they were raised to do, to be a good, kind person and to help out. But speaking from personal experience, lose your focus of who are you anymore. And Marilyn, I don't know if that happened to you. My guess is probably with taking care of two parents, because I was taking care of my mom with dementia and my dad with brain cancer for 4.5 years. But most of the time it was just the one, not both.
Well, I was completely in denial. I mean, that's how I was raised. If you're supposed to just walk away, you're not supposed to even acknowledge it. And it took me such a long time to be able to see the person instead of the loss, and to hear the thought instead of the confusion. And when I finally realized the personhood of my mother, then I realized I was her partner in her care. And then everything changed. And I wish I had known then what I know now with my father. because his final years would have been so much better. So denial was our way of dealing with pretty much everything. And and there was no stress in denial, just walk away. And then when I finally realized everything was fine, there was so much love and humor and fun and discovery with Mother. And I was not a full-time family caregiver, which is such a privilege that most people do not have. And that's why I'm so excited about Anne's work, because the need across this country for family caregivers is so vast. And I'm sort of curious how, as you were talking about, the reach is right now about 500 people, but your goal is to reach everyone. And how are you going to do that?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that every family caregiver who is struggling with dementia has access to finding meaning and hope and the work of Dr. Pauline Boss in community with other caregivers. Isolation and loneliness is a terrible problem now for family caregivers of adults. On a survey done by the CDC during the pandemic, they rated the highest in stress and suicide ideation of any group of high-risk folks from isolation and loneliness. So we all need to be part of how we help them reclaim meaning and hope in their lives, and a sense of finding meaning in that making peace with the relationship they have now and finding those blessings along the way, which are there. I mean, it is all possible. So we, thanks to Maude's and our award funds, started our national movement. We have big ideas, and that is to create a virtual community so that we reach these folks who are isolated and alone and bring them together. And that is called the Meaning and Hope. It's called Meaning and Hope Institute. And our website, we're still a work in progress. We'd love everyone to check it out. I'm a believer you can't build a community without community. So we want folks to be part of our journey with us. We do everything we do in partnership, but it's at themeaningandhope.org. And take a look at it and see our warm and welcoming approach to come on in and be part of this in company. That's how we all get through this journey. Every one of us does better if we do it in community with other fellow travelers. So what we will offer on there, again, it'll be a source of all kinds of resources when we complete it. But also there's access now to Duets virtual services. But I think also just the fact that we can help people lower their stress levels, stay healthy and resilient, and more tuned in to that relationship they have in the now, knowing they have the tools and techniques to navigate it well. I mean, what a gift that is. Myself and all of my team who are in our family caregiver support services all are or have been family caregivers. We walk the walk. That's why we're there. And I think that's why maybe this has been such a labor of love for all of us to create this and give it wings. And there's 16 million dementia family caregivers now, and that number is growing.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of work to do. And I appreciate everyone whose work helps to reach them, lift them up, and say, hey, we're here for you. We can help.
Yeah. And that 16 million might sound like a big number. That's only the ones we know.
Right.
There's a lot of people not diagnosed, out there that people
Right.
are supporting and helping. And so, it just amazes me how much can be done, like you said, when we work together. And I love that you said everybody part of your group has walked the walk, because there's a huge difference from being supported and not to knock them, but it's a whole different realm to be supported by someone who has a medical or academic background who hasn't been in the trenches. Mm-hmm. And I have seen and I have heard them say the same thing when all of a sudden they're touched. For example, I was speaking one day and a man just started sobbing, and there's probably 500 750 people in this crowd, and he's at the front table, and he is uncontrollably sobbing as I'm talking. And I can't really stop, but I want to stop. And one of his coworkers ran out and got a roll of toilet paper and brought it back because they couldn't even move him. I mean, he was just overwhelmed. And so, we took a break, and I went on and I talked with him, and I said, how are you doing? And he says, I have been a licensed administrator for 21 years. And he says, I'm doing everything wrong. He said, I really thought all the advice I was giving was correct. He says, but my dad now has it. And he's like, I agree with everything you're saying. And it's a whole different approach. And he says, I just feel so bad for those families. And I said, you gave them the best information you could at the time. And it came from the heart. I said, so that can never be wrong. And I'm sure it was still helpful, but it's a whole different angle and a whole different degree of help when it gets into kind of that real life situation. And how do you cope? And how do you even, like with Dr. Boss, how do you cope with your emotions? How do you even let them come out? Because sometimes you're worried they're just going to flood you and take over, and you're just going to turn into a puddle and not be a human being anymore to be able to care for anybody, because it can be so heart-wrenching to go through those things. But I think it's important for all of us to give a platform to allow people to acknowledge those feelings, not feel embarrassed about them, and to help them move through them, that they are normal. It's our reactions to those feelings that can get us in trouble, much more so than actually feeling our feelings. And I'm sure you've seen this, Anne, through your group, that when people acknowledge their feelings publicly, when they become vulnerable, they allow others to go there, and that is really healing in the long run.
It's so true. I think the best gift for any family caregiver is to, as Dr. Boss says, make sure you build your psychological family, that family of your heart and mind, who have your back, who are there for you no matter what. That can be members of a support group. It's not sometimes even our actual family who can be throwing pot shots from the side, So that we have learned from our surveys that can be done virtually and be just as meaningful as in person. And that's really cause for a lot of hope, really, in how we can help support folks. I think that one of the most important things is to help these family caregivers find their voice. Sometimes because they have chronic sadness, sometimes they just get shut down. It's like people are like, I just don't want to hear it anymore. I want to just be happy and in my own world. We need to all have our voices. We need to find our voices, because that allows us to deal with things rather than those things just taking control and power over us. And so, that's what we're all about. In company with others, Dr. Boss's terms are complex, paradoxical thinking, living in the gray, both and thinking, that your loved one can be with you, but also no longer there for you, and acknowledging that. Those lower stress and just help us all take that next step and connect to the real blessings and the gems that are along the way.
As I hear you think, I keep thinking of this encounter I had with a man who so desperately needs community. He was telling me about his wife who has dementia, and he said, when I see her, she knows who I am. She touches my face and she tells me she loves me. And when I look in her eyes, there's nothing there, and I leave in tears. And I wanted to scream and think, why could he not see what I most likely would have, which is a woman with something to say? And his entire life was encompassed by sadness and loss, and that's all he could see. And if he had given the opportunity to experience joy or anything other with her, his ability to see who she was and relate to her would have changed.
I just think of how many family members would have literally just died to hear those words.
Yeah.
But chances are he was looking for the whole old package, the glint in the eye, the smile, the peck on the cheek, the hug, the everything else that went with it. And the package was different.
Yeah.
For me, I say my mom's biggest gift to me was her disease and what she taught me through that. And what a strange package. I never would have imagined came to me. But Marilyn, you said the same thing. Through denial, you kind of went like this. And then when you entered, you were like, oh my gosh, how cool is this?
Yeah.
And look at the things you developed as well through what you were taught by learning to communicate on different levels that we have either ignored or taken for granted. And, all the nonverbals, when you can embrace those again and take them back for what they are, instead of just, well, that always happens. And then you're missing them. But, for me, some of the smallest, minutest little things that happen between my mom and I are the things that are so ingrained in my heart, will never, ever leave, because they were so special and they surprised me. Like when my mom said my name after 3 years of not saying my name. I mean, I just broke down into a puddle and bawled for hours. And I remember having even an epiphany during that moment. I could hear God talk to me and say, Lori, don't be sad. This is a brilliant gift. Spread the word. We can still communicate. We can still have love at different levels. In learning these levels of unconditional love, for me, it turned into almost a spiritual journey, because it was so intense and yet so simple and so comfortable at the same time.
Lori, you can't know those things unless you show up and show up out of love and meet them where they are. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be frustrating. One of our caregivers in our group, and these were my most precious group meetings, was where people would not just talk about what was going wrong, but you're trying to turn them to focusing on what is still there, what is still meaningful. And they would start to bring in these little amazing treasured gems that they would have otherwise missed. And that's when you knew that their humanity had been deepened, and they were there finding those blessings that we will never, ever forget. We will treasure them always. One of our caregivers used to bring them into the group, one of the Alzheimer's dementia groups, and he just made a point of sharing them each week, and the caregivers loved it. And one day he called them his epiphanies, and then he came in one day and called them his geodes. And we said, what do you mean by geodes? He says, they're the gems inside the stones the universe keeps pelting us with.
I love it.
Everybody just loved that analogy and loved it. So we all have those gems in the stones the universe pelts us with, if we show up and pay attention. And they're treasured.
They really are. They really are. And they make you not just look at your relationship with that person, but I think the whole world differently. They're just ingrained then in you to have a different perspective. I used to get really frustrated when people would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I'm like, it's okay. We're doing okay. Granted, we have our moments, but so do you and your husband, or you and your kids. You have your moments where life's not perfect. And we shouldn't expect dementia to be perfect, because life wasn't to begin with. But we put these high standards in, and I know I did it with my mom. I called it freeze framing. I kind of took her at her pinnacle state and said, this is who I want you to be. And I didn't even know I was doing that until one day I looked at a picture, and it was a picture of my wedding day, my mom, my dad, and I. And then I broke out laughing, thinking, of my wedding day and how my mom kind of coordinated everything. And I mean, it was just, that's who she was. We announced we were getting married. In 20 minutes, she called back with the church, the food, and in the hall. I mean, everything was like set. And then I look at this picture and I think, nothing's the same. I have no right to hold my mom in this pinnacle state. My dad's dead. My mom's got dementia. And I'm divorced. Hello. Nothing is the same. And yet I think it's really common for us to hold on to the past instead of moving on with the future. And because there's such a fear of losing the past. And yet if we all get up and look in the mirror, none of us are the same. Life is fluid, and in learning to be able to appreciate all of life. And there's gifts there's gifts wrapped in everything. If we're willing to look for it. You look at some of the poorest communities in the world and people go, how can they be so happy? Because they look much deeper than keeping up with the Joneses. That's not important to them. It's about relationships. So I love the program you're doing. I do want to ask you about, because a lot of people might not really understand and what ambiguous loss is.
Good question. So ambiguous loss is a complex loss that has no resolution, no closure. It's just, again, stays in a place of ambiguity. And in the case of it can be physical or psychological. But for family caregivers whose loved ones have Alzheimer's or dementia, it's a psychological ambiguous loss where they're physically there with us, but psychologically absent or missing. And one of the keys to this that is so important is Dr. Boss, who's just spot on, I think, with this. What happens when most caregivers go through feeling real grief, but they're not dealing with it because no one outside recognizes it. We recognize clear loss when someone dies. And then what happens? Our friends, our loved ones, our faith communities wrap us in support. But that doesn't happen when you're caring for someone with dementia very often. They don't recognize it, and sometimes we don't either know what's going on. Dr. Boss said, and this is really key, oftentimes caregivers will finally go see a doctor and say, I need help. And they almost always are immediately diagnosed as having depression. And what is the treatment for depression? It's medication, sometimes therapy, or both. Dr. Boss contends that most of the caregivers she worked with in the world of dementia care, actually what they were experiencing was chronic, profound, deep sadness. And they had every right to be sad over all these profound losses that happen as your person, as they progress further into dementia. But the treatment for sadness isn't medicine. It's community. It's self-care. It's learning how to navigate and equip yourself with the tools to navigate that. That is a real game changer, I think. That's a real aha moment for a lot of caregivers when they hear what ambiguous loss really is. And it has proven to be true. And when we do our support groups, even, they're all founded. They're all grounded in the work of ambiguous loss. And my best days were when it wasn't me saying, as Dr. Boss teaches us, it was family caregivers in the group saying, well, what Dr. Boss said about that. And they build that into the whole fabric of their lives and share it with one another. And that in conversation and community is what makes all the difference.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about her work is she states things so they're repeatable, and
Right.
they are understandable and they hit the heart. And they're like you said, those aha moments of this is what's been missing, because we think of grief, kind of the stages, and I can't tell you how many care partners have said, I don't need a grief support group. I don't need help for 8 weeks and then I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to be fine in 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to last longer than that. And what they really want, like you said, Ann, they want community. They want to feel connected. They want friendships. They want to know that they're not nuts, that they're still grieving.
Right.
And everybody does it differently. And I know when I had Dr. Boss on the radio show, she said, we're really looking at changing grief because it really never does go away.
Myth of closure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that in itself, I think is helpful for people to understand as well. So I just so encourage people to, go check out your sessions. I mean, my gosh, they're free. There's absolutely no excuse not to do this. And it is a wealth of information from one of the world's leading experts in this area.
They get to learn from the renowned expert herself, the humble, wise, warm. It's like, you kind of get a hug from her even through video every time. And so we really encourage everybody, please come join us. If you're interested in being a facilitator, it's a scripted guide. All the materials are there. And you can bring it to your own community or get on one of our groups. The beauty of virtual now is that we're not just getting folks from Phoenix, Arizona. We're getting people from all over joining in. And we would love to have you, get a hold of us. We'd love to talk to you. Or send us a note through the meaningandhope.org site. There's a way to do that.
I have a question for Ann. So that if you go through this process, I think you said it was how many sessions? 6? 10. Do people stay together after that? Are these communities that are formed that continue on their own?
Yes, they can. That's an option for them. We call them alumni groups. Mm-hmm. And we actually now are running an alumni specific support group so that they can stay together. Mm-hmm. If they choose, they can meet up and, have conversations or, join one of our alumni groups. That's something we plan to grow. The other new thing that we're launching is a senior facilitator program. So once somebody has facilitated a sufficient number of groups, we'll just train them so that they can train other facilitators. Mm-hmm. That's how we grow. We have to have scalable models that work pretty efficiently to keep this free of charge. And so that's our model going forward.
I love it. And is there anything that we haven't talked about in terms of what the Maude Award, being a recipient of that, has done for you as an organization?
I am here now getting to talk to you because of Maude Awards. I will tell you, we were successful getting our very first federal grant. And it was to do a demonstration project on a national level. We're in the middle of it now with Finding Meaning and Hope and continuing to build our Meaning and Hope Institute, virtual institute. That all points directly back to Maude Awards. When you're a small nonprofit who gives it all away for free, you don't have a budget for marketing and all of those kinds of things. We are working each and every day to get the resources in to take the next step. So this was just cause for such huge celebration for us because it lifted us up. It helped us do what we've dreamed to do by giving us wings and I would say sort of validating what we were doing. That's worth tons to us. And we are forever grateful for that award.
That is so wonderful to hear. Thank you, Ann. Lovely.
I mean every word of it.
And I guess I should say that Maude Awards applications are open. Mm-hmm. They open today. You can go to maudesawards.org and find out all about the awards, how to apply. You can see past applicants or winners, so you can get a sense of what's been going on. But so we're open for business.
And I would encourage everyone who's had their journey, who has their big idea and it's been their labor of love that they've cared about and nurtured and brought along, apply. That's where the best ideas come from, I believe. Mm-hmm. But you have to let people know about them. And that's what Maude Awards does for all of us.
Yeah. You have to step out and step into taking a risk publicly of stating what you're doing, but claim it. Claim what you're doing. Be proud of it. Excite other people, inspire them. Like you said, I think one of the things that's so beautiful about Maude Awards is the validation. When someone gets validated for the work they do, that just, lights a fire under them to do more. Yeah. And there's not enough of that out there. And even for those that apply, you also put together a magazine that acknowledges those that couldn't be official winners, but were still doing great work. So that gives people a huge variety. There's so many resources out there that people just don't know about, and all different kinds of services, products, and tools that are tapping into skill sets of a variety of people of all cultures, all ages, everything. And there's no dumb idea out there. If you feel there's a need, there's a need. And there's other people like you. You just maybe haven't connected with them yet.
And there's a book that we do every year that has a number of applicants. So I think this year we have 65, so that you can see a wealth of programs that are enriching the lives of people living with dementia. Even if they weren't the winners, we want to expand our knowledge of everything that's out there that people can access.
And now, Marilyn, this is for people in the U.S., correct?
In the U.S. right now, we are not. We've gotten it. We did get one letter of interest from China, but we're not ready there. But yeah, right now it's for anybody. It can be nonprofit, for-profit, individuals, family caregivers, anybody. We just want to hear from you. We want to know what you have done. We want to know how we can make life better for people living with dementia and their care partners.
Great. Anne, it looked like you wanted to make a comment.
I did, because I'm remiss that I didn't say this, but again, we would really love any of your listeners to jump on our site, see what you think. It's a work in progress. We do stuff, I'm a believer in nothing about us without us. So feedback from family caregivers is key for us. But also, if you sign on, we'll keep you posted when the site is fully up and running. And we'll invite you to a fireside chat with Dr. Pauline Boss. So you'll love meeting her. You can learn a little bit up front, even if you haven't taken the class. She's been a big supporter, and it would be really our honor and pleasure to bring you together with this wise and wonderful woman. So,
oh, fantastic. So again, the opening of the awards application is today, March 14th, and runs to May 16th at 6 p.m. And that is Pacific time. And all you have to do is go to the website, which is maudesawards.org, or you can email Marilyn at maudesawards.org if you have any questions, like which category, and is this even appropriate for me, and all of those questions that people have. She's more than willing to talk to you. They are also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and their social media tags, they've kept it really simple, is Maude's Awards. So you can find them anywhere. And for Duet, they have a Facebook page, Duet AZ. They're on Twitter under that same handle. And again, you can go to their website, meaningandhope.org. And we have a link to the trailer that will show people a little bit about, about the video classes with Dr. Pauline Boss. And then do you want to give out a phone number as well, Anne? I have one, but I always like to ask first.
Absolutely. And thank you for that.
So the phone number is 602-274-5022. Ladies, this was just a true pleasure. And I can't wait to see who wins and all the nominations that come in, hopefully from all around the nation. And show off what you're doing. Be proud. Step up. Share it. Inspire others. And see what happens.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
This was great. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Well, in wrapping up, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Check Maude's Awards out. Again, applications open up today. They close May 16th. And for our listeners, please like, click, and share. If you know of someone who's got a great service, product, or tool out there or information, pass this along. Everybody deserves to be recognized, but you can't always be recognized if you're not willing to be noticed. Bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors. From fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.